Chapter 29. You all went into his territory. Sarah heard again the anger, or was it concern, in Onya's voice. We had no choice, replied the doctor. He got up and walked away from the group. He was staring at the hill, so brightly lit by the twin Paraconian moons, down which the Gargan must come, as if he were trying to work out what it was going to do when it arrived. Jeremy was also starting to move away, for quite another reason. Well, come on, he said in a high-pitched voice. What are we waiting for? This time Sarah, even as frightened as she was, did recognize the note in Onya's voice. It was anger, but it was the anger of a mother with a toddler who had just run into the traffic. It was no good running away, she reiterated. The Gargan would just follow their scent, just as it had done to find them now. Even when the Brigadier told her of his big idea, she dismissed it as useless. The creature was far too intelligent to be fooled by such an elementary trick. We'll just have to finish him off then, said the Brigadier. No, said Kaido in a powerful voice. If you want to save your lives, that's the last thing you'll do, said Onya grimly. But we can't just hang around waiting to be eaten, wailed Jeremy. Got it, said the doctor, turning back, and he demanded from each of them a piece of their clothing, a sock, a piece torn off a shirt, the scarf Sarah was wearing, anything at all. Of course, said Onya. Well done, Doctor. Would you be so good as to get me a piece of Captain Rudley's clothing, Onya? Said the doctor briskly, as he started wrapping a sizable lump of meat in the large handkerchief he'd taken from his pocket. I'll go, said Sarah, but Onya was already running towards the bridge. Nevertheless, she took off after her. As she ran over the water, she could hear the squeal of the Gargan much, much closer. Suppose the doctor's idea didn't work? How could she leave Waldo all by himself, unconscious and utterly defenceless? As she reached the row of huts, Onya came out at a rush, clutching Waldo's blood-stained shirt, and ran back across the bridge. When Sarah got inside, it was to see that though Waldo had moved, he was no longer lying so straight, and his arms were outside the disarranged covers. His eyes were closed. She sat down beside him and took his hand. Waldo, she said, can you hear me? The Brigadier watched the Gargan coming down the hill, its nose to the ground, reminding him irresistibly of Mickey Mouse's dog Pluto, stopping every so often to thrust its snout into the air, opening its gargantuan mouth, and once more threatening the world. Behind him he could hear the Kimonians crowded round their leader, joining in an incomprehensible chant of fear and praise. In front of him was the little pile of parcels of meat, now topped with Rudley's shirt. How good are you at lobbing grenades? The doctor had asked. Good thinking, but the essence of an attack with grenades was to put them in precisely the right place at precisely the right time. He had to catch the creature's attention, and that meant waiting until it was near enough for him to place the bundles of meat right under its nose. Go on, cried Jeremy. What are you waiting for? Quiet, boy, said the doctor. I'm sorry, he said, but unless something happens soon, I don't think I shall be able to stop myself running away. The Gargan came nearer. The Brigadier judged the distance. Not yet. Not yet. Now! With the easy overarm action learnt at Sandhurst all those years ago, he lobbed the haunch of venison wrapped up in Waldo Rudley's shirt high into the night sky, to land less than a yard from the creature's nose. Hole in one, said the doctor. The Gargan lifted its head to the full extent of its serpentine neck, and glared suspiciously around. It uttered a tentative squeal. Hearing no response, it lowered its head and sniffed the bundle. Then, picking it up in its front teeth, it tossed it into the air, caught it, and, with a couple of quick chews, swallowed it down. "One might almost say, 'How's that?' said the doctor." The brigadier was waiting with the meat wrapped in the tail of his own shirt in his hand. Like being watched by the sergeant instructor, he thought, as he sent it on its way. "He likes the taste of you," said the doctor, as the animal chewed the new morsel. Sarah's scarf, the doctor's handkerchief, Jeremy's sock. "Did you have to leave me till last?" said Jeremy, the quaver still in his voice as the Gargan mouthed the latest offering. The chanting had stopped as the villagers watched their sacred beast devouring its dinner. Its occasional roar had turned into a continuous purring growl of satisfaction. It gulped Jeremy down, sniffed the ground as if to make sure that there was nothing left, turned and ambled away up the hill the way it had come. It was evidently satisfied that it had devoured its prey. "You make gifts to the Gargan," said Kaido to the doctor. "You are indeed my brother." "Waldo," said Sarah, "can you hear me?" His hand remained still in hers, his eyes were shut, and his breath was slight. Sarah gripped his hand fiercely, as if to force some of her own vitality into the lifeless body. "Please wake up," she said. "It's Sarah." She was aware that there were tears running down her face, but she didn't wipe them away. They were an irrelevance, a small hiatus in the intensity with which she was willing Waldo to live. Whether she sat like this for minutes or for hours, she was never to know. There was nothing to indicate the passing of time, and nothing in the world to be aware of, bar that too still face. Was that a movement? But no, it was nothing but the flickering of the light as a rogue draught caught the wick of the lamp. But that, yes, it was a tiny movement in the hand she held so closely. "Waldo!" A flicker of his eyelids, and then he was looking at her, straight into her eyes. "Oh, Waldo," she said, taking his hand in both of her own. "Sarah," he said, his eyes looking deep into hers. He took a shallow, rasping breath. "I'm sorry that we—" His voice trailed away as he struggled to take another breath. "Don't try to talk," Sarah said in anguish. But he persevered, and in a surprisingly strong voice he spoke again. "I wish we—" His voice stopped. A look of surprise came over his face, and he gave a rattling sigh which seemed to go on for an impossibly long time. His eyes unfocused, and his fingers went limp in her hand. His mouth dropped open. "Waldo!" she said yet again. But even as she said the word, she knew there was nobody there to hear it. Suddenly the doctor was there, with his fingers on the pulse point in Waldo's neck. After a long moment, he closed Waldo's eyes. "I'm sorry," he said. She looked up at him. "If I hadn't come back, he would have died alone. I wanted to stay with him, but you wouldn't let me. We just went away and left him. Nobody should die alone." The doctor looked at her as if he understood everything she was feeling. "You were right, and I was wrong," he said. She got up wearily and went out of the hut, past Anya and the brigadier, past Jeremy, out into the moonlight. On the bridge, with the sound of rushing water filling her ears, she stopped and looked up into the sky with its unfamiliar constellations of stars. Where was he now? There was a numbness within her that seemed even more unbearable than pain. It was as if Waldo's death had left a black hole in her heart. All the things of the world that had given her delight were crushed into a heaviness, contracted to a nothingness from which no light could emerge. What difference did it make where he was? "Be brief, Tragan," said Chairman Freeth. "I have an eager young souffle lying in front of me, trembling in anticipation of ravishment by my fork." His voice was thick with desire. Tragan's expressionless voice, amplified and distorted, bounced off the polished surface of the panels of Bloglarian fernwood. "It's Radley," he said. "We picked up a contact." "Is that all?" A large forkful slurped into the capacious mouth. "It was very short, but before he lost consciousness again, he spoke to the Earth girl, Sarah Jane Smith. And wherever the girl was, the doctor and the others must have been nearby." Freeth put down his fork. "Ah, now that is of considerably more interest. What did you use to destroy them? A missile, presumably." There was a pause before Tragan answered, his voice flatter than ever. "The contact was too short to establish the coordinates, I'm sorry to say." "Then send a gunship on a search and destroy mission. Do I always have to do your thinking for you?" "If we alert them too soon, they'll just go to ground. The Lacan is a large area." Freeth's souffle was already losing its virgin nubility, sagging into a despairing middle age before his very eyes. "Running true to form, are we, Tragan? You ruin my dinner just to tell me that nothing can be done." The vice-chairman's protest at this was ignored. Freeth went straight on. "These people must be eliminated. Get on with it." He picked up his fork, sighed, put it down again, and waved petulantly for the souffle to be removed. If it had not been for the dream, Anya Fargin would have been content to live out her life as the mother of the Kinyan tribe. It had seemed quite natural that a forest beast should speak, and while speaking should metamorphose into a kanji, the small furry piglet which the Kimonians kept as pets, and then into a sailbird, soaring with its companions high above the island which was the Lacan. Although she could not remember the words, the message was clear. Personal liberation was not enough. Appalled as she was at the enormity of the task, that she, Katyan Glessy, as was, should seek to turn the world upside down, to open the gates for all in Paracon, even for those who had no idea that they were in prison. She nevertheless found herself exulting in the thought of it, dangerous though it was. To seek out those who felt as she did, without exposing herself to security, to help those who could bear no more to escape as she had done, to build a fellowship with the ones who dared to stay and work unseen, as she did herself as servant to the president, and ultimately to plan with the trusted few the steps which must be taken to destroy the evil that held Paracon in its grip. All this had been the manifestation in the world of her own freedom, a small return for the love that had set her free. Was it all to be lost now, to be thrown away because of a stupid mistake on her part? "It's my fault, Rance. Because the boy was unconscious, I quite forgot that the transmission needle should be deactivated." It was not until the next morning, going to Sarah in the hope of offering comfort, that she had learnt that Waldo had come back to consciousness, albeit for a very short time. She knew the malignity of Tragan's organization too well to hope that it would have gone unnoticed. She had at once sought out Rance, as leader of the newcomers, and found him with the doctor and brigadier dissecting the latest security weapon they had acquired, a maser-powered gun which would ground a fly car as swiftly as a stun gun would paralyze its occupant. "So we can expect an attack at any time?" said Rance bitterly. "All our plans go for nothing? We just give up?" "How advanced are your plans for the coup?" said the doctor. "Just about complete." "Then why wait?" said the brigadier. attack is the best form of defense and all that. Why not go ahead at once? If only we could, thought Anya. It's not so easy, she said. Yes, we have completed our plans for the takeover at the palace and the corporation, all the strategic points, in fact. But the difficulty is that we're here and they are there, interrupted Rance, with even more bitterness in his voice. We have to make a preliminary foray to capture enough transport. Or are you suggesting that we should ferry 372 people in Onya's fly car? See what you mean, said the Brigadier. Yes, a seemingly insuperable problem, said the doctor slowly. There might be an answer, though, if our new friend Kaido can be persuaded to play ball. Do you agree, Brigadier? What was he talking about? Thought Onya. The Brigadier also seemed to be nonplussed, but only for a moment. His face brightened. I'm with you, he said. Airborne troops, splendid notion. Rance was looking suspiciously from one to the other. Onya said, Would you care to share it with us, Doctor? How many passengers could one of the Kimonian bats be persuaded to carry? Of course. And what's their maximum range? Added the Brigadier. Given auxiliary fuel, of course, nose bags or whatever. Now, why didn't they think of that?